Well, welcome to the WorryWoos. And you'll see on my shoulder, we've got the newest in the family. I don't know if that means they're the youngest, but they've definitely got a belly button, so they're definitely human. So this is Zelly. Now, Zelly, you'll see on this slide where Zelly fits in. And Zelly is a monster of envy and jealousy. And you might think, oh, that's not an important WorryWoo. When you think of the damage that jealousy does in the community and the crimes of passion, I mean, so much, right through history, you look right through all the Shakespearean things, you see how powerful jealousy and envy have been in destroying families, in destroying people, in destroying whole regimes and empires because of this one. Now, fortunately, not all the kids suffer from this, but we've all got times when we're a bit envious and jealous. So the book that goes with that, you'll see The Monster of Envy next to Zelly. And then let me try and explain to you on this next slide about the difference between jealousy and envy. You see, they both make us feel angry and resentful, but jealousy is usually about other people, a rivalry between, I'm jealous of that person, and relates to, more the people dimension, the social dimension. Envy is usually, oh, I wish I had that, or he's got a better soccer ball than I've got. So envy tends to relate to things. And probably not usually as serious or sinister, but on the other hand, it does lead to a lot of theft and borrowing and these sort of littler crimes. Jealousy is based on lack of trust. So what we're doing in the classroom is we're trying to build trust, because when we feel lack of trust, we become insecure. And fear of losing somebody. Might be a boyfriend or a girlfriend that, she's talking to him, she likes him more. And then we become very jealous of that person, and in no reasoning we'll sort it out. You can be the brightest person in the world. Jealousy does not respond to that because it's irrational. And it's very dangerous. Zelly wasn't jealous, but she was envious of things that the other friends had. It often rears its head in sibling rivalry. You go back to your own childhood, you will think of times when you'll know who was the favourite in the family. And so sibling rivalry and some of the fights that happen only in about 99% of families, by the way, is related to jealousy, sibling rivalry and jealousy sort of go together. Envy is often seen, I regard it, in capitalistic countries. In more socialistic countries, it doesn't seem to me they want everything we've got. We've got to have the biggest house, we've got to have the best of this, we've got to have the best gear, we've got to have the best hair, we've got to have whatever. Because we're a competitive society, it's pretty rampant in our community. Okay, but let's talk now what you can do about it. Well, if you've got good connection, and I hope when we talk to Andee from the school that she will look at how she's connecting kids. If you've got good connections between kids, then if the group feels connected, it's not going to be as jealous because they're not strangers. I remember a quote saying, don't introduce me to that person because then I can't hate them as much. It was a pretty interesting one. Use activities in Friends for Life or Fun Friends, the ways that you can connect the kids together. They're good books and they're readily available. Share and listen to what makes them jealous or envious. Teach sharing from an early age. Now, I know little 2-year-olds, they can't share, and I don't think they're going to be monsters of jealousy, but what they see, they think they can have, and who they see, they think they can have. There's nothing of this sharing stuff. So start at an early age and expect to take time for them to build up this skill. Love equally. If you've got favourites in your own heart, the kids will know. And usually the person that you're finding hardest to like has got traits which either remind you of your partner or remind you of things about yourself that you don't like, and you don't see like it being repeated in the next generation. So do a bit of a bit of self-analysis, like a critical in-look is more healthy than an angry outlook. Avoid comparisons and overly competitive things. I must admit, in my classroom when I was teaching, I had a lot of competitive stuff to see which was the best group, who could manage such and such the best. And looking back, I don't think I would be now quite as competitive, because I think I can turn kids against each other because they're just a little bit too competitive. You can have some group discussion on envies. What do we envy most? What would we be better liked if we had those things? So you can ask, if I had that best ball in the classroom, would I be better liked? And of course the answer is no. Well, they might grab the ball, but it doesn't make you more popular, although some kids do try to buy that friendship, don't they? Recognise our jealousies. When we name the jealousy, what we're jealous of, it loses its power. And because we're no longer letting it shame us. So that's, again, a good thing that the social interactional model of the WorryWoos can do. It gives the kids a chance to say, well, I used to be jealous of such and such. And by opening up that, it's not buried. We're not sort of living with the shame of it. So although Zelly's the most recent of the characters, Andee Green, who wrote the book that goes with it and created these characters, knew that it was a powerful role, had a powerful influence in terms of social interaction and crimes of passion. And the last thing is, help kids to learn let it go. When we don't need that feeling at the song, let it go, by letting things go in our life. Some people will have pictures of floating it off into the sky. Some will put that jealous thing into a brown paper bag and imagine floating it off. But we've each got to learn ways of getting rid of that thing that's bugging us. One of my daughters, what she does is, when she's jealous of somebody, she puts their name and what she's jealous about, and she puts it in the freezer. So she's taking that person right out until she's got control of that feeling. So then she'll take that person back out of the freezer. So, I've got some weird kids, you can gather. But the other thing I wanted to show you is, again, this book, this cross-curricular workshop book. It's got so many ideas and activities in the language arts, in visual arts, in performing arts, music and movement, activities that can embrace Zelly and show how we can, in fact, work on kids' jealousy and envy in the classroom. Now, it's available on the website. If you go into Wonderful Me website, you will see that there's a WorryWoo section in there, and you just click onto that and it'll tell you the various characters and the books, and it'll have this book listed there as well if you want to enhance the kit that you have with additional cross-curricular information. So I think that, I've worked on this in the clinic for many years and had some pretty difficult cases, as you could imagine. But rather than me talk about how it's best done in the classroom, I'm going to talk to Andee, and she's been working on Zelly, and we'll see what ideas she's got for the classroom to help kids become more confident, self-confident, socially confident, that they don't need to be jealous or envious. Okay, let's talk to Andee. So we're lucky enough now to have Andee. Now, Andee's a student teacher at Erina Heights School. I think it's very brave of her to take on Zelly. I don't know whether you needed someone like you probably felt like Squeak and just wanted to retreat into your bubble when you were asked. But so this is Zelly, and Andee's now going to talk to us about activities that she has designed and worked with the class teacher to develop to help kids come to terms and so they're not jealous or envious. So Andee, tell us a few things that you've been working on.
Okay, so to begin with, we went through the book, The Monster Who Wanted It All, and we discussed with the students what envy means. And a few of them were, had quite interesting responses. And we then looked at a little activity I did. So I sat them in a circle and I handed out chocolate bars to each of them. But they all got different chocolate bars. So some of them were given 3, some had none. Some of them were given 1, and they started talking about, well, I want the chocolate. Like, I want the one that, I want 3, I want 1, I would like a chocolate. And so we started talking about how they were feeling and why did they want more chocolate. And they're like, oh, like I'm feeling envious. I'm feeling what Zelly felt. And so that was quite interesting. And so we started talking about, well, could we change the way we were thinking? And the ones who had been given 1 chocolate started saying that, well, I could be grateful that I have 1 chocolate, because there are people in this group who haven't been given 1. So it was interesting to see how, they were able to comprehend that in that activity. We then went on to in a different lesson, we went on to a watercolour activity. So I asked them what they thought the colour of envy was, which was quite interesting because a few of them said a whole range of different colours. And then one student said, oh, green. I've heard that green is the colour of envy. And so we talked about that a little bit more and talked about how in the book, Zelly gets little green spots when he's envious. And so I sent them away and asked them to create a artwork that to them represented envy. So some of them came back with pages that were half green and half brown. And so for them, the green side was the side that they were envious of. So they pretended they were standing on the brown side and looking at the grass is greener. So that was their way of representing envy. Others came up with an envy virus. So they had a green bubble and a pink bubble. So one was grateful virus and one was envy virus. And so they would prefer to have the grateful virus, they were saying. Another activity that we did with the students was we started looking at appreciation. And so we talked about some different strategies that they could do to overcome their jealousy. And so as a class, they came up with strategies like breathing, or thinking about what they do have instead of what they don't have and what they would like. And they talked about how they could be grateful for their families, they could be grateful for their friends. So that was quite an interesting activity. And they then wrote down those dot points that we all came up with together. And then I challenged them to come up with 3 or 4 more that were just personal to them. So they had to think about things that they were likely to get jealous of, whether it was their peers and or sport. And so for them, they had to come up with a strategy that could help them personally overcome that jealousy. Another activity that we did was drama. So they had a look at some different videos that I showed them of children talking about jealousy and how they'd overcome their jealousy in school. And in those drama activities, they had to go away with their friends, come up with a drama, come back and present it to the class. And then the class had to pick out who the envious character was and then suggest what they could have done better to make the drama work better and not have any jealousy in it. So that was quite an interesting activity to do as well. We also did a PowerPoint task. So they had to go through the book and identify the main ideas of the book and then list out their strategies that they think Zelly could have used to overcome his envy earlier in the book.
Do you think those activities are just sensational. I really like that drawing and the green and brown and what it feels like to be that, and a few of the personal ones and strategies. So you're getting the kids thinking through and coming up with solutions. Have you got any feeling that the students might benefit long term from this particular monster, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Even in the short time that we've been doing it in the classroom, I've noticed that when some of them have been looking at what other students do, so say in a maths group, we're sitting in a maths group and they're watching other students be able to cotton onto a concept quicker than them, and they're getting envious of that, how that person's able to do that. I watched them kind of sit there for a bit, and a few of them have said to me, oh, like I'm just going to take a few breaths because I'm feeling a little bit envious of this other student. Or even in our groups, while we are working with jealousy, one of them will mention a comment and the other students will pull them up on it and say, oh, like you need to work on that and you need to like use your strategies. And so that's been really interesting to see. So I definitely think that long term, it would be a huge benefit in a classroom.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Andee. I know that they're rating you as a student teacher. I'd have you teach my kids at any time. You're doing, that was such an incredible contribution, and the work you're doing is so good. And it was interesting to hear you even here again, the breathing, the importance of breathing to sort of gain control over our feelings so that we can act more rationally and not let those feelings override us. Don't let the amygdala hijack our brain, and then because then we're prisoners of it, and we can do damage to ourselves and our friendships and so on. So I just love those activities, and thank you so much, Andee, for sharing them.